Hello, this is Steve from Bedo's Leatherworks. Today's project is we're doing a Louise Vuitton epi bag, full piping replacement all the way around on both sides. And the customer's complaining that the bag is sagging, doesn't have any structure support. So we'll put some structure in there to give it some rigidity to stand it up. Alright, so what we're going to do, I'm going to start tearing it apart. Basically we're going to remove the lining from the outer shell, so we can turn the bag inside out to replace the piping. You gotta be careful not to damage anything while you're taking it apart. The more you damage, the more you gotta fix. So take your time. This is my favorite knife, by the way. I use it a lot. Well, one of my favorite knives. I usually put a mark where how the bag was taken apart. For example, put a mark here. An X will do. Another X right here. So I know that after I get putting it back together, I know the X has got to line up for them to be in the original place. It's very easy to kind of confuse the lining when you spin it around and take it apart and don't know where anything belongs after you try to put it back together. Alright, so that's the bag turned inside out. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put some markers, again, where we're going to take that apart. So we'll go back to stitch it. Everything lines up as it was. Now I'm not a trained bag maker, professionally trained that is, so I don't know what they call that marking. I call it marking, so once it's apart, you know what's what. Now on the other side, you want to do maybe like two of them like this. That way you don't get the sides mixed up. Again, once it's apart, you're going to have a hard time to know what's left and what's right. So this way, the two marks, you'll know it's on one side, and one mark, you'll know it's on the other side. So spend a little time to do this. It'll pay off in the long run. And the job will look good after it gets done. Again, be careful not to cut anything like that. You see what I just did? I cut that a little bit, which isn't good. So now I gotta fix that. So you gotta be careful when you're taking things apart, not to create more work for yourself. Oy, oy, oy. You guys see that? Well, luckily, the corners were worn out, so we're going to make the bag slightly smaller, so that little tear should be okay. But as you can see, it's very easy to damage the bag. You got to be careful. Especially, you know, the high-end stuff that you work on. If you mess it up, man, you got to pay for it. The edges are skived very thin, so a little bit of wrong pressure will do some damage. Like that. You see that? So again, we're supposed to take this bag in just a little bit, about maybe a quarter of an inch all the way around to make it smaller because the corners are all worn out. Alright, there's the piping. Now you're going to spend about an hour after you take everything apart to clean all the stitches. Make sure you do that because you don't want any excess stitching sticking out when you're done with the job. It'll make it look very sloppy. I don't know if you can see that corner. Too much light. It's a bit worn out right there. You can't really fix that unless we take it in a little bit and hide that, so that's what we'll do throughout the whole bag. Alright. Okay, we're back. Got the bag apart. Cleaned all the stitches from the sides. Alright. Now cut a piece of leather for the piping. Now most of the time you'll find pipings will have a little piece in between it, between the leathers. But this particular one is a very thin piping. Doesn't have anything. Just a leather piece folded over to make it look like it's a piece of piping. If I can take it apart to show you. See, there's nothing in there. Whenever I've got piping replacement, believe it or not, this is what I use. Alright, it's a nylon cord for the weed whackers. It's the perfect size, and it works out very well. Now there's a couple different sizes. I use the smallest one so it doesn't look so bulky. In this job we're not going to use anything. So we got a piece of leather here. The color is a little bit different than what you got for the original leather. But we can touch that up, that's not a big deal. Once we get done, we'll make it look like it's part of the bag as far as the color goes. So we'll cut 2 strips of this. Then we'll skive it, make it a little bit thinner. So it'll look nice when it gets done. So in reality, this is your only material that you're going to be using for this job. And a little bit of cardboard to kind of stiffen it up, and that's it. Thread and needle. Most of the stuff is all labor intensive. Alright, we'll be back. After we skived the leather, we glued it. Now we're hammering it. The next step is stitch it onto the bag. I usually have a piece of marble that I hammer my leather on. I can't find it. It's downstairs and I don't feel like going downstairs and getting it. So this metal one will do. And that was the camera falling down off the tripod. A little technical difficulty. Oh, lordy, lordy, lord. I guess I won't be a director after all. I gotta stick to my leather crafting then. Gonna fall again. Let me turn it off before it falls again. Alright, piping cut. I'm gonna set it around the back. You gotta make sure that, do this slow. Make sure you're going almost in the right holes. Not in the same holes, but in the same general line of the existing holes. So when you flip the piping to the side, you won't tell. You won't see the existing holes with the stitches before. You don't want to see that. Normally I make little relief cuts right in the corners here, but this is pretty soft leather. I don't think it's necessary. You just have to kind of use your eye as a guide when you're stitching. Make sure that you got that nice curve to it. Take your time. Coming to the end here. Alright, so you guys get the idea. Now when you flip this over, to stitch the center gusset of the bag to the side, you have these stitches to follow as a guide. So you want to make sure that, again, you're on the same line. So when you flip this over, you flip the piping over like that, you don't see the old holes or the other side of the stitches. Alright, let's sew the gusset on now. Remember those marks we made earlier? So this is the single marks on the side flap, so we're going to use that side of the gusset here. Make sure all your lines mark up so the bag looks the same after it gets done. Very important. You don't want the gusset to be longer than the flap, the side piece. You want them to be
okay, so we got one side stitched. I wet the inside a little bit of shoe stretch just to kind of give it a little bit flexibility as I'm turning the bag inside out. I don't want anything to tear or wrinkle or crease. So as you guys can see, it's not a bad job. It's not quite done yet, but it's getting there. The color is pretty close. We haven't even touched anything up yet. So now it's time to do the other side.
Cardboard pieces, we cut it to shape, round to the corners. So here's a little trick I do for cutting the corners. Simple cam. Make sure it's got the right circumference of the bag corner. Very similar. and put it down and cut it. That's it. No marking, no measuring. So the top part is a little bit narrower than the bottom, about ½ inch, just like the same shape of the bag. So that'll be part of the stiffener that we're going to put inside, and that'll give it some structure. I covered the back of the cardboard with a thin material, just basically like a lining, to give it a little bit of strength. Now glue that side, so I'm about to put it inside the bag, which I glued also. You can see it or not, but it's got glue inside. Now the glue's still a little wet, because when I try to position this piece, if it's not right, I can peel it off and reposition it again. Because once it's down, it's got to stay down. If it's in the wrong position, then you're stuck making the whole thing over again. So I put a little bit of markings in there, just where my center of the bag is. So I got a little bit of a guideline where to put it. Even with the guideline, it's a little bit difficult to get it exactly where you want it. It's in there. Now let's try the other side. Okay. Both of them are in. Now this helps a little bit. I mean, it's not much, but it's better than what it was. So now we get to put the lining back in. Remember those marks that we made? That X? Where'd the other one go? That X? So we'll make those there together. Put a little glue. We'll stitch it, clean it up a little bit, and we're done. Okay, normally at this stage, I would use a post machine to sew the top on. Unfortunately, my post machine is acting up, so I'm going to stick with my old patcher here. Now, I've loosened the tension a little bit for the foot, because I don't want the leather to get marked. And basically, we're going to sew in the same holes that the original one was. Okay, we finished the project. So basically this is the finished bag. It's got new piping all the way around. And it's got a little bit of structure, giving it some support. Now somebody had dyed this bag previously. The color didn't match very well, but I'm going to leave it alone because once I take it apart, I know it's going to be a pain in the ass to try to match that color. So I cleaned it up with a little bit of water, damp rag, wipe it down. And I'll put a little bit of spray shine on it just to kind of even the tone out a little bit. But that's it. I'm not going to do it any more than that. Because once you open those can of worms, man, it's going to be hell trying to match that color. So we'll leave it alone. And the customer was well aware of that, hey, I'm not going to dye it for her for that price. Oh, anyway, this price, this job was a $300 job. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.